hurry.
I've got 2 things of battery even though I turned it off, so.
What?
Dun dun dun. So, I have another question. My question would be, what has the transition from live shows to online content been for you? Because for pretty much all of your career, you have been traveling to events and doing stand-up in churches and cruise ships and all over the country.
Gymnasiums.
Prestigious halls.
Back rooms. Back rooms at dank restaurants.
Yeah.
Next to the kitchen. The swinging door.
Yeah. Outside venues.
Outside hay wagons.
Yeah. All of your favorites. But now, because of COVID, we aren't really going anywhere. And so we're making this big leap on trying to get you online. And I just want to know briefly what that has been like.
It's been awful. It's an adjustment that we didn't really make on purpose. We didn't go, hey, let's start thinking about how to do comedy online because our world is going to be turned upside down. And it's way different. Doing comedy online, doing comedy to a video camera is much different than doing comedy in front of a live audience. It's just when you're the only person in the room that's talking and you can't hear the audience, you can't hear any feedback. It's a huge adjustment. I was talking to a guy who makes his living in radio a couple of weeks ago, and I said, I feel like you. I feel like this is what you've done your whole life. And so while you're used to it, you're used to just sort of talking and you say things that you think are funny, but you have no idea of knowing whether or not they're getting any kind of reaction. I said that's really new for me because I'm used to being able to gauge how I'm doing immediately. And now I don't know. You go online and you do comedy. First of all, you can't do stand-up. You can't deliver stand-up material to a camera because your timing is all messed up. There's no rhythm. It's when you're doing a live show, you have this sort of rhythm that you fall into where you do your thing and then the audience reacts and then you can kind of gauge when to start talking again based on what you're hearing from the audience. Some jokes get bigger laughs than others, and all of that is out the window now because I don't know. Everything gets no laughs now. Every single joke gets no laughs.
So would you say that's been the hardest part, or what would you say has been the hardest part if that's not it?
It was hard. It was hard at first because I wasn't used to it. But after a year now of doing things online, doing live shows and doing streaming and recording things and putting them out, I've gotten to where I'm comfortable with it. I don't need audience feedback anymore, and that's a bizarre thing to say. I just do what I think is proper timing, what feels right conversationally, and I don't worry about whether or not I'm getting laughs. And that is, I think kind of a strength. I'm going to be curious to see how that plays out if I actually do a live show again sometime before I die, because my instinct is telling me that not requiring laughter is going to be a strength, maybe. Maybe what it'll do is I'll use that as an excuse to put subpar material in my act. Who knows? I think the conversational aspect of doing comedy online is going to translate. I think it's going to make it better. I think it's going to make the live shows better because I'm going to slow down. I'm not going to be quite as pushy. Stand-up material there's an urgency to it, at least the way I did it, where it's like, okay, that joke worked, now I got to get to the next joke, and now I got to get to the next joke, and now I got to get to the next joke. And that's the way you're supposed to do stand-up. You're supposed to pack it pretty tightly with laughter, but you can't do that online. And so I have a feeling that this year or 2 or 3 or 10, however long we're not doing live shows, I have a feeling it's going to change to what my live show looks like.
What has been better? What has been more enjoyable doing things online than live shows?
Once you get used to not having feedback, and once you let go of the pressure to just be relentlessly funny, funny. Once you let go of that and become more conversational and I guess in the moment, it is kind of fun because I don't have the same pressure. I don't have the same urgency to get to the next laugh and to keep the audience rolling. And now the shows are much more laid back. I'm more experimental. I'm not afraid to try stuff that potentially is not going to be well received. I do stuff that there's no way I would ever do on stage, just because the format online is different than what you do on stage. There's certain things that the advantages and the things that I do kind of like are that the camera is right here, and there's certain things that you can do that are kind of up close that you couldn't do on stage because the audience is too far away and things are too small. I can cut up ding-dongs now and show people what the cream filling looks like. You couldn't do that on stage.
Yeah, thank goodness. So is there anything that's about the same? Is there any overlapping similarities besides obviously you in the live shows versus online?
I think funny is funny. So yeah, your sense of humor and my sensibilities and my style is basically the same. It's just paced differently online. It's more of a conversation. I don't know how else to say it. It's more of it's laid back, and here's what this is, and I have no idea if I'm waiting too long or if I'm going too fast. And there's no way to gauge that when you're talking to a camera. And so I just let that go. You let that go, and you just do what feels like it's the right thing to do, and don't worry about it. There's no rules online. Because there's no way to gauge whether you're doing comedy properly. You can't gauge it. And so you just do it and have fun. It's better to have another person that you can talk to when you're online. If you are by yourself talking like a news anchor, it's just you talking to the camera, that's harder because you have to supply all of the content and all of the everything. But if you've got another person that you can talk to, that makes it easier to kind of, it takes the pressure off the rest of the audience too, because there's an awkwardness that could happen if it's just you and the camera. But if you're talking to another person, then that conversation it takes the pressure off. And you're less aware of the fact that there's no audience paying attention, and you're actually having a conversation with another person. And I don't think that this is a revelation that I have discovered. If you watch most people online, most of the talk shows even have got at least another person, and sometimes 2 more people.
Yeah,
that
a
they're
co-host, a hype man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, which one, since I know that you're kind of a, see the gray in things, which one is better? Which one do you like more?
I like doing stand-up when stand-up is good. There are when I'm up in front of an audience that is liking it, and it's a good environment. The lights are right, the audio is right, and the audience is there, to do comedy. There's nothing like it. But those are so rare. Most of the time, traveling and making a living doing comedy, it wasn't perfect circumstances. The money comes when you do shows that aren't necessarily comedy shows. I mean, it's very few people make a living as comedians, and an even smaller number of those comedians who make a living doing comedy shows. Most of the time, if you're a comedian, your bread and butter is going to come from doing shows that are less than ideal. I made a lot of my money doing church shows, which were like Valentine's Day banquets and things where comedy is part of whatever else is going on. And those are worse circumstances for doing comedy. It's harder. It's harder to do comedy there because the audience isn't there to see comedy. And that doesn't mean that you can't win them over, and it doesn't mean you can't have good shows doing that. But it's harder. And there's a lot of travel, and there's a lot of interactivity that you have when you're a working comedian doing corporate shows and those type of things. You have to interact with people a lot of times. You have to sit at dinner with strangers and have conversations with them, and so there's a lot of aspects to that are draining, and I don't necessarily miss that. I'm not a real extroverted person by nature. I would prefer not to sit at a table full of strangers and have conversations with them before I have to do a show.
I mean, the guy who doesn't want to be near people decided to make a living getting up on stage, performing for people.
I like making crowds of people laugh. I like making people laugh, but that's different from interacting one-on-one or one-on, 6.
All right, well, my battery is blinking all of a sudden, so what are the final things? What are the things you want to say? What do we got going on online?
You should have charged the battery.
Yeah, I know.
Going online, my comedy course is online. School.johnbranion.com if you're interested in the comedy course, or you can go to johnbranion.com and hit up the website and become a member. Send me an email, ask me a question, tell me a joke, or give me your best recipe for chili.
Oh, that's nice. All right, thanks. Oh boy.
I love chili so much.